Well, welcome, Lucy.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I've been really looking forward to our conversation because I think pet sitting could be a really interesting side hustle for the pet lover. What caused you to search out dog sitting gigs?
Yeah, so I moved to Vancouver. It was during COVID, so 2020, right at the time of the pandemic.
Oh man,
Yeah, good timing. So
moved from where?
I moved from the UK.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so I
quite a
grew.
move during the pandemic, or just
Yeah,
before. Yeah,
yeah. I used to live in the north of England, so always grew up with dogs and always been an animal lover, done a lot of volunteering in my life for animals. So yeah, it was a case of we came over to Vancouver and the pandemic hit, and it was just a case of, getting on an app that I knew I could start making money through. And it was a case of just making ends meet, making sure that I can live and survive until I get a full-time job.
so at this point you came into Canada and you did not have full-time work.
Did not have full-time work, no. So
Okay,
I do social media on the side. Well, I do social media full-time now, but I came in, didn't have a job, and was just basically getting my feet, getting set up, finding an apartment, you know,
yeah,
as when you move to a to a new place.
sure,
So yeah, found Rover, knew that I could offer my pet sitting services, and yeah, just basically went from there.
nice. How long was it before you found full-time work?
It wasn't too long. I would say I actually ended up working in a doggy daycare for a little bit as well.
Oh, of course you did.
Yeah, still on theme. So I worked for 8 months, and I found that job pretty quickly. It was just an entry level job, minimum wage and
Yeah.
picking up shifts as well. But my full time job came after about 8 months, I think, of being here.
Yeah. And that's in
Yeah,
social media.
that's in social media. Yeah.
Why keep dog sitting then? Like, why, once you landed full-time work, why didn't you quit the platform?
There's probably two reasons to this. One is that I can't have pets in my apartment. My apartment isn't pet friendly,
Oh,
and
okay.
I can't live without a pet.
What a
So
great solution. You get to play with dogs and pets and
yeah,
cats, even though you can't have them in your own space. Okay, I love that.
yeah, definitely. So that was one reason, and another reason is just to have that other extra bit of income. I've
Okay.
never really considered myself being like the hustle and bustle, having that kind of like multiple jobs thing. I'm very much like a slow living kind of person, but this is the perfect balance of my passion. I love
Yeah.
animals. I love being around animals, and I can very much do this whilst I work remotely full time as well. So it doesn't impact my life too much.
Yeah. Are you on team dog or team cat?
Team dog. I
You
feel bad saying that because I really like cats as well.
can be both. You can be
Yeah,
both.
I could be team, but yeah, if I was to get a pet, I would get a dog, but I would also probably get a cat as well.
Well, it's Rover that you're on, right? The platform.
It is, yeah.
How did you stumble across them?
I I'd actually seen a couple of videos on Instagram. I think I got like targeted ads. They must have known that I was looking for
That probably wouldn't have been hard to figure out. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I think I got that and then did a little bit of research into it because there's apps in the UK that I think it's called like Borrow My Doggy, and
Okay.
people put their dogs up that they need like dog walks, and you can borrow someone's dog for a day and then return it. And yeah, I don't know. So I'd known about those kind of apps in the UK, but never heard of Rover before. And yeah, the more research that I did into Rover, I was like, okay, this seems like a feasible thing to do.
And so what year did you start with them?
2020.
Okay, so you've had a few years on them.
Yeah,
What's it been like to work on that through that platform?
it's mostly good. There's definitely some frustrations just with like in-app experiences a like a provider sense of you go into the app and you can keep your calendar up to date. The more you keep your calendar up to date, the more likely you are to be visible to people that need your services.
Okay.
But every now and again, there's been times like if I go back to the UK and visit my family, or if I'm away, I mark myself as away, but
Yes.
then people can still contact me and like request sit-ins, but then it just doesn't come up as a notification. So it'll sit in my inbox
Oh no.
until I go back onto the app, which then brings down your rate of response. Like you have like
Yes.
a response of like a date and a time and things like that, and it just brings that down. So there's definitely some frustrations in with that sense, but in
Right.
terms of like signing up to the app, they do like all your background checks. It feels quite a safe platform to use because, I mean, from both perspectives, as me providing a service, I want to make sure that I'm safe going into someone else's home, and
Yes.
vice versa. People want to make sure that I am going to go into their home and not do anything weird.
Ah. So as far as check you out then, is that like a criminal record check?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think so. Like it's just like it's a certain background check that I think they charge for it now. They actually didn't
Right.
when I first signed up. It was a free thing that they did, but I think they charge about $40 now to do a background check.
Okay. I think that
Yeah,
that might be around the ballpark. So maybe that is the same thing. I'm
yeah.
involved with Rotary. It's an international service organization, and we do work with
Mhm.
underage people, et cetera. And so we need to get them done as well.
Yeah.
But I never thought of them for what you're doing. But yes, because you're going into people's homes.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm going to be asking you about that. So how do you go about setting your prices?
I mean, when I first started, I set them out pretty cheap just to get people booking. And then obviously the more reviews you get, the more you are pushed up into the algorithms for other people to book.
Right.
In terms of how I set my rates, I go on the level of experience that I've had handling dogs. So I've handled pretty much every breed of dog, well, not every breed of dog, but most breed of dogs that you could imagine.
Yeah.
I I did a dog training certification when I was in the UK, so I have a background in dog training as well.
Great.
Uh, and I kind of set my price based on the level of
Hmm.
knowledge and care that I can give the dog. I can like administer oral medication, I can look after senior dogs, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I set my framework. And there's some time in the future when I'll probably look into doing like first aid and things like that, and then I can bump my prices up a little bit
Sure.
more as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever met a dog that you decided not to work with?
Yes,
Yeah.
I I took on a client that had a dog that had recently been rescued from
Mm.
Korea, and she had had him for about 3 months, I think, and needed someone to help sit during the day, which was fine. But his personality and his temperament hadn't properly evolved, like developed from being rescued. So we were unsure as to what he was reactive to,
Right.
what he was nervous about, what he wasn't. And they also had a separate dog trainer as well, which I was getting information through if
Yeah.
there's any way that I can help and fit into the dog's life to make it as easy as possible. But the dog just didn't take to me entering his space, and I just had to
Mm.
have that open and honest conversation and be like, this isn't the right thing for your dog. It might be in the future, but because it's so early on since you rescued him,
Yeah.
it's hard to tell.
Too many new people.
Yeah, it's quite an overwhelming thing for a dog to go through as well, being rescued and then rehomed. And
Right. And now there's a dog trainer involved too.
yeah.
Yeah. So what do prices look like on the platform, and what are the various things that you can do? I imagine dog walking is one of the most common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's dog walking. You can do drop-in visits. So someone might be able to book me to just, pop in, spend like 10, 15 minutes with the dog, or cat. I sometimes look after cats as well.
Okay.
Um, if they need lunch given or need like a little bit of a pee break during the day, just pop in
Right.
and see them. Um, there's also I could opt in to have dogs come to my apartment, which I don't do because I can't
Because you
have
can't, you're
dogs.
right.
Yeah, and that's like the doggy daycare side of it. And then there's dog boarding as well, which is where I go to other people's houses. So if you're looking at like price point wise, the drop-ins and the walks are probably the cheapest, and then it's daycare, and then me going and boarding at someone's house is the highest price point.
Which is kind of your preference, is it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the one that I get booked on the most, and definitely the one that I get booked on with like regular clients and stuff, because once they trust me that I'm safe in their house, it's a surefire way to make sure that they've got someone that they trust looking after their dog and their house whilst they're away.
Great. And that's where it may or may not be a criminal record check, but the background check that
Yeah.
Rover does would be reassuring for that buyer and or dog owner, cat owner. And I would imagine that I would like to think that the platform does that to protect you as sitters as well. That would be a
Definitely.
requirement. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times where I wish Rover would kind of put more steps in place for when people go set up their profile to look for dog sitters. There's been times where I have rejected a request based on the lack of information on a profile. So there's no information of like a name, an address, or there's not even a picture of the dog, or there's no information about the dog, and that's the stuff that I don't want to accept, because I have no idea what I'm walking into.
Yeah, or even if it's legit, that sounds like a wise choice on your part.
Yeah, because it doesn't take too long to even just put a picture up and tell me what your dog's called, and put a picture up of yourself so that I can see who you are as a person.
That's right. Yes, and you could always do a quick reverse search of that photo and see if it's legit or not.
Go into the investigative work.
Pet detective.
Yeah. Maybe that should be my new title.
Yeah. So how much do you charge for the pet sitting?
The pet sitting, I currently charge $90 a night.
Okay.
And then for a walk, I just charge, it's $20 for a half an hour. So those are like my two main services. I don't think I've ever been booked for like a drop-in before, because usually if people want me to drop in, they'll usually want me to walk their dog, so they'll just book me for a dog walk, and then I'll put some food down before I leave and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then the platform takes 20% off of that, right?
20, yeah.
20. And then in addition to that, at least at time of this conversation you and I are having, the platform also adds on 11% to the pet owner to a maximum of $50. So they're getting it both ends, just like Airbnb, just like most platforms, Fiverr.
Yeah. It's 20%, and then we have to like factor in tax and things like that for later in the year.
Yeah. Do you remember how long it took you to land that first gig?
It wasn't long. I'd say maybe like a month, maybe not even that, maybe a couple of weeks before I actually got my first booking. It was really fast.
That's great.
I put a lot of detail into my profile. I think because I come from like a communications, social media background, I make sure I put enough pictures on, and I do a little bit of a wordsmith on my profile and things like that. So
that really makes a difference.
It does. Like if you can market yourself, then I think that's just as much as an advantage as like actually doing anything else on like offering the service.
Yeah. And if you're a person that's not skilled in that area, get help in that area to help yourself stand out and provide all that information to help the comfort level of the buyer, of the pet owner. Yeah. So what do your earnings look like now off the platform?
It varies month to month. Some months I can be really busy, like especially over summer and over the holidays, or anytime we have like a stat holiday. That's usually what people are wanting my services. I'd say I take maybe 2 or 3 bookings a month, which can vary between like 1 or 2 days. Or there was in August, I was booked for a week, for like a full week sitting.
Yeah.
So my earnings can vary anywhere between maybe like a couple of $100 to $1,000.
Sure. Per month.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's something that you've got complete control over your calendar,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And it's something that, especially with me working full time,
Yes.
I was looking for jobs. There were jobs that I would fall into that say that they were fully remote, and then they required people to go back into the office full time. So then obviously I lose that side hustle.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that was a bigger factor than I realized of, okay, I'm now required to go into the office full time, but I lose a certain amount of income doing that through my side hustle. But then I'm obviously paying for public transport now going into the office, and I have to pay for, like, just the overall
Right.
costs of then going into the office full time. So I think from a lifestyle perspective, as well as wanting to maintain this side hustle, it was something that I definitely factored in when I was looking for jobs. And now I'm fully remote, and it's flexible hours. I can kind of set my own hours, and it's, as long as my work gets done and I attend the meetings that I need to, then they're happy for me to do what I want.
Right. So you get like paid double if you are dog sitting somewhere and you're working remotely out of that new location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great.
It's something that I also just don't mind doing. Some people, especially when I tell like my friends and my family, they're like, "Oh, how do you feel about that?" 'Cause some people get a bit weirded out that I would go to other people's houses. I'm like, it's a holiday for me.
Yeah.
I have a great time. And
And I get
like,
to play with dogs and cats. I
yeah,
get
I get to
paid to do it.
play with the animals, water the plants, and as long as they've got Wi-Fi, I'm happy.
That's right. Oh, that's fabulous. Well, what's been your best and or worst encounter with someone's pet that's come to mind?
I'm gonna go with the best first, because
Okay.
I can absolutely tell you that one of my regular clients, they're two Labradors, and called Frank and Gordon. I'm just gonna name them out because they're the best.
Frank and God.
Gordon,
Oh, Golden. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, they're two Labradors. It's like a yellow lab and a chocolate lab, and they are the most lovable buffoons that I've ever come across. Yeah, I've looked after them now for, gosh, probably about 18 months, on like when the owner goes away for work trips or on
Yes.
holiday. I often stay with them for a few days. And the first time I ever sat them, Frank was only 3 months old,
Oh
and now
my.
he's a big boy.
Yeah.
But he still loves laying on my lap.
Aw.
And it's really nice because I have the same picture of him like cuddled on my chest from being 3 months old to how big he is now, and just I've kind of like seen the dog grow up as well as,
Yes.
like, yeah, it's been really nice. That's definitely one of my favorite clients. They're just,
Fun.
yeah, they're hilarious.
Yeah.
uh, I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily say that I have a terrible one. Just having that knowledge of being able to spot when a dog's uncomfortable and not happy with me in their environment, I'm quite
Mm,
honest to let the owners know, and nip it in the bud as quickly as possible, because
right.
I don't want to put the dog at risk. I don't want to put myself at
For
risk.
sure.
And I think the owners appreciate it as well, just because you have to look after technically what is another family member.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there any challenges you think that someone might face being a pet sitter that they wouldn't consider or not think of?
I think communication, definitely, you have to have very strong communication skills. I have taken on jobs where the owners have told me like horror stories of like previous dog sitters where they just didn't hear anything from them. They booked them and they would turn up, look after the dog, and it would just be radio silence
Oh no.
for a week, and the person would try and get in contact to check that like the dog's okay, and you just wouldn't hear
Yeah.
anything back from them. So I think having making sure that you're keeping that constant communication. I always make sure that I check in first thing in the morning, let them know how they've slept, check,
Aw.
like just send pictures and videos
Yes.
during the day, and then last thing at night just give them a rundown of like what they've eaten, if they, if they've got like a special diet, if they have any, issues with reactivity on walks. I kind of give them a little update of that, like a little performance review of how they're doing, but usually they're very good, so I don't have to do anything too drastic.
My sister has three labs, a chocolate, a golden, and a black. Well, the black one's a mix.
Oh, all
And
flavors.
yes, and they've had lots of labs over the decades, and it's their favorite breed.
Yeah.
But they have a very reliable dog sitter, which will come there and visit when they're away. And my sister always comments on the photos and the updates. They
Yeah,
went for a walk, they did this, they did that, how they're doing, and it's just like so comforting.
I'd say that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I'd also say there's a level of people getting onto Rover that don't necessarily have too much knowledge of dogs but want to look after dogs. I'll see it in a way that I love dogs, so why wouldn't I do this as a side hustle
Mm,
when they don't have any like further knowledge of, what the traits might be in a breed of dog,
absolutely. That's huge.
um,
Yeah.
or even just basic training of like positive reinforcement, things
Hmm.
like that. Just making sure that you're treating the animal in the way that it's supposed to be treated. I think a lot of people do a lot of things that would be an issue further down the line, or just conditioning in a way that the owner probably might not want the dog to be conditioned.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that a lot of those pet owners too have cameras in their house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's been a couple where they have cameras in the house. Most people have cameras outside of the house,
Hmm.
but the owners are very like open and honest to be like, is it okay if like we keep the cameras on and stuff like that? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like,
Right.
why would I be weirded out about it? Because it's not like I'm going to do anything
Right.
that's
Yeah.
a red flag
Yeah.
anyways. So like, of
Yeah.
course, keep the
You
cameras
probably just
on.
forget
Yeah,
that they're even there, actually.
yeah, you
Yeah.
do. And I'm like, if you want me to see you, if you want to see me singing to your dog, you can go for it.
Oh, I like that. And one more thing before we leave the communication piece, Lucy. I think that's great advice for whatever industry as a person is, whether they're dealing with dogs or other humans, just to keep people in the loop. I find that solves 99% of the problems and issues and anxieties if we're just in contact.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think it's just quite a basic thing that people often overlook
Yeah.
and very much needed.
Any particular advice for people wanting to get involved in Rover or any pet sitting
Yeah, I would
venture?
say definitely make sure you know how to handle a wide variety of dogs. And if you don't, then be honest about that. Rover's quite good at the settings that you can turn on in terms of what dogs you take on. So if you don't know how to handle a dog with special needs or a senior dog or even like the larger breeds,
Right.
you set like what dogs you're comfortable with handling. So
Right.
if you have knowledge with like smaller dogs, you can just look after smaller dogs and things like that.
Right.
So yeah, I think just being honest with yourself. I wouldn't take on like a big bull mastiff that I knew if it was to charge off on the leash,
Right.
there's no way I'd have the strength to like hold it back. And I'm like, I don't ever want to put myself in that position either. So
Yeah. And
um
and a good place to start too, if people need to gain more time and experience with different breeds, would be to volunteer at something like the SPCA.
absolutely, yeah. I would always advocate to do some volunteer work. There's always people that need it as well. Or
Yeah.
even if not the common shelters, maybe just like looking around the neighbor, like asking around the neighborhood, see if there's any like elderly people that want their dogs walked and stuff like that. I used to do that quite a lot
Oh,
when,
that's a great idea,
yeah,
especially in the rain and the
yeah,
winter and yeah.
Yeah, just getting that initial experience first, or even just there's a lot of like online courses that you can do that kind of go through the history of like dog breeds and their traits and like training 101s and things like that. Just having that prior background knowledge rather than thinking, oh, I like petting dogs.
All
I'm gonna
right.
I'm gonna be a pet sitter.
Yeah. Yeah. Really get out there and
Yeah.
get an understanding of what you're going to get yourself involved in.
Yeah. And my previous experience in the doggy daycare really helped as well, because when we were taking dogs in for that, there's a list of questions that you go through that are somewhat transferable to pet sitting in general. So it's like, does your dog have any allergies? Is
Mm,
your dog reactive to anything? How
right.
well does your dog do with other dogs, with children, with cats? Like things that you might encounter whilst you're looking after them in day-to-day life.
Sure.
So yeah,
Yeah.
the list of question piles up, and
Yeah.
especially when you're living in someone's house for a longer period of time, making sure you know where the garbage is, where the
Right.
trash is,
Yeah. Right.
because I've taken on jobs and I've been like, I have so much garbage and I have nowhere to, like, I don't know where the bins are.
Yeah.
And I'm texting them like, where's your trash room?
Note to self, I need to ask this to my list of questions. Yeah. Yeah. What's the best way for our listeners to connect with you, Lucy?
So I'm on Rover. I think if you search my name, Lucy Slater, I should come up if anyone was interested in pet sitting services. And I am also on Instagram, so that's Lucy Slater, but it's with two Y's. So that's my Instagram, and then you can also connect with me on LinkedIn as well, which again is just Lucy Slater.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
I'll make sure that those links are in the show notes.
great.
So, what's your best tip, Lucy, to inspire others to start or grow their side hustle dream?
I would say my best advice is to just get started. I think taking that first step is probably the biggest one that you can take.
Hmm.
Set the profile up, get some help, do some research to see how you can become more visible on the platform.
Right.
And because there's always ways, keeping your calendar up to date, putting in certain like buzzwords into your profile, making sure that it's readable, like a user-friendly experience. This goes back to like the marketing side of it,
Right. Yes.
but yeah, there's definitely things that you can do to get started that way. And then I'd also say do what I did, and start off with good rates. Start like, don't price yourself too high. Don't go in thinking I'm gonna make $1 million in the first month, because you're not.
Right. Yeah.
That's not how it works. So yeah, I'd say set your rates pretty fair to start off with. The first job will come in, make sure you get the reviews after,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I think everything just falls into place after that as well. And I think as you go along, you definitely learn things from the last time that you can make note of, and just it makes the experience so much easier.
Yeah. As the gigs pile up, that experience grows and you feel more comfortable with it and have more fun with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy. I mean, your love for pets obviously shines through, and I appreciate you sharing what's involved in working on Rover and some of your experiences, and of course, for being today's side hustle hero.
No, thank you for having me. This has been great.
Lucy stressed the importance of providing a lot of pertinent information when you set up your page and describing what you offer in such a way that will compel people to want to buy from you. Now, of course, that goes for marketing materials in whatever business that you're involved in. If you're starting out a new venture, or if you're wanting to refresh and bump up sales, look at what the top producers in your industry are doing. Take a look at their social media, their website, how things are laid out. What kind of vibe are you picking up? You want to check them out, not to copy, but to gain ideas and inspiration. A word of caution, though, remind yourself that they've possibly got years ahead of you, and you're likely not going to build out something like they've got going overnight. And if they're truly crushing it, chances are they're getting a lot of help in creating what you see from a team of people, including writers and production people, social media experts. So don't be discouraged if you're not producing at the level and frequency that they're nailing it. Give yourself time. They too had to start somewhere and build up. If you've started taking action on your side hustle, I say to you, congratulations, because you're part of that special tribe of people who not only say they want to live a better life, but are taking steps to actually make it happen. Well, that's a wrap for today. You'll find the links Lucy mentioned and the full show notes on our website, sidehustlehero.com. If you're enjoying this podcast, I'd be so grateful if you would subscribe and take a moment to leave a comment and say hello. This will help others know that there's valuable content here that'll help them start or grow their side hustle. Thanks for watching, and hustle on.